Hey golfers, and welcome back to the Second Swing YouTube channel. It's another live at lunch, and today's a really good one because we're going to talk about the best irons of 2025. And to do so, we have a very special guest with us. So, of course, you've been paying attention to GolfWRX. They've got some pretty cool content pieces coming out every week talking about the best items on tour. And of course, in their forums, there's a ton of great discussion. But recently, they've been going through and posting their best of series. They started with some medals. And then this week, they've been publishing stuff on the irons. And so we have Brian Knudson to join us today. Brian, it's been awesome I know we've done all kinds of things, right? We've had a live at lunch a few weeks back talking about drivers and fairway woods. We had to reconnect for the irons. How are things going for you, Brian? How's the season been treating you?
It's been great, and yeah, thank you for having me back on. I'm glad that no one has seen me and revolted against the channel, so that's great. But it's been good, busy, and like you said, with anytime you're doing kind of the best of stuff, it always takes the whole team, a lot of resources, and but it's been great. So yeah, we've been launching kind of the different categories over the past couple days. And yeah, it's always been really great. And to hear kind of the people who say, yeah, that was great, or wow, I can't believe this was missed, or whatever, the discussions around any best list are always fascinating because we all have kind of our ideas of what we've hit well, and what others have hit well, and what we haven't hit well. And it's fun to see people say yes and no to the list that we've had. So really good. But yeah, 2025 is off to a great start, and excited for as the weather gets warmer for us Northerners, exciting for the season
Right.
to get into full swing.
Yeah, so I wanted to just let you also kind of explain a little bit what best of is before we dive into these categories. So, first of all, I like the categories that you guys decide because I know we at Second Swing we try not to pigeonhole iron models into handicapped or handicap ranges because a 15 handicap can be somebody that putts really poorly or someone that putts really, really well, and the rest of their game is completely different. So, with that said, how is the best of? How are these lists and rankings decided on? I know there's a lot of conversations with fitters throughout the industry.
Yeah, I mean, just like our best driver that we do, and we kind of do every category, but irons, we pull basically the top fitters across the country into the world. I mean, we've actually spread out, and this year, we've got people over in the UK and Canada, a bunch of different places. So we reach out to fitters with big surveys, and we try to keep them as simple as we can because we know their time is valuable and they're very busy. But yeah, we reach out to them because we look at it and say, you can find all these ways to come up with the best list, whether it's, robots or people or, however you want to do it. But these fitters see, and it too. I mean, Second Swing with their fitters. I mean, we talked to Kevin Kraft and those guys
Mm-hmm.
there who work for Second Swing, and fitters see so many different swings, so many different players, so many different handicaps. I mean, they just see it all on a day-to-day basis, and you just can't replicate that many shots with any format that we would do. So we came up with this a few years ago and said, let's reach out to these fitters that have so much knowledge and give them kind of a platform to say, hey, these are the clubs that are performing really well in our base for our customers. And giving them that opportunity, it's been awesome. And I think reaching out to those fitters who do it every day, who see everything, they see the changes, the trends, all that stuff. They're in there seeing it. It's a great way to get a best of list. And yeah, the categories, this is always a topic of discussion every year, even internally for us, because we do get a lot of feedback from fitters, and from the public who see the
Mm-hmm.
list. And we originally, like everybody had like, super game improvement and blades and players cavities or whatever. We had these categories. But again, like as this market kind of changes and irons change and evolve over time and things like that, those categories don't necessarily fit. And then there's irons that kind of fit in multiple categories and, all that. So we came up with categories that are a little bit more general. They don't reference a handicap necessarily. They don't reference like, a specific, like this type of player only. We try to keep it a little more general because there is a lot of gray area in irons. And yeah, so we kind of came up with these five, and I think they fit a pretty vast majority of golfers. When you look at this list, you can kind of put yourself into one of these buckets and say, this is the kind of the golfer I lean towards. And, then look at that list of irons and say, yeah, these are the ones that, perform really well. And hopefully, when I go sign up for my fitting and, walk into the second swing and I
Right.
sit there, these are some of the irons that I'm probably going to be handed. And, I'm excited to hit these and these, and maybe I've got a bias to a brand or whatever. But yeah, it's something that every year we talk about, see if we have to change them. But they've been the same for a couple of years now.
Yeah, so let's start diving into some of those categories. And again, we're, as you mentioned, there's, I think you touch every type of golfer within these categories, but you're not, making, say, the mid handicappers are not just paying attention to this one category, right? Because they all are applicable for mid handicappers out there, for example. So let's start with the overall performance. So what we've done, I know the breakdown is top 5 on GolfWRX.com. So if you want to see the full list, you can go there. We're going to focus on the top 3 in each category. So with the overall performance, we want to start with I'll start with the winner, and kind of just for you, Srixon ZXi5 is the winner in the overall performance, and the Srixon irons have been super popular the last few years. Really good, obviously, performance, but which is why they're high in this list, but also the look and feel has been fantastic as well. So talk to me about the ZXi5s and I guess what you heard just as to why those are so successful.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it. I mean, they kind of do it all really well, and they were put into a really great package. And I think Srixon, as you've run through these different model years and these different lines, I think they're becoming less and less of the kind of the underdog. More people
Right.
are hearing about them, more people are trying them, and I think the ZX5, it's one of those. If you look from the previous ZX5 Mark II into the ZXi5, the changes aren't drastic, and they shouldn't be, because it's been such a good iron. You don't fix what's not broken. And I think they've done a great job of making it a little better in different areas while still keeping the DNA of that iron, which is, I look down on it, it doesn't have a ton of offset. The top line isn't razor thin, but it's not too big. It just kind of looks like a player's iron. But then when you pop the hood, it's got a thin face that creates ball speed. They've got the rebound frame that's going to help do a better job of expanding that sweet spot and giving ball speed on those mishits. And then you look at it is forged, so you're going to get good soft feel out of it. It's going to be responsive. And then, of course, the Tour V sole, which I personally love. We play in soft conditions up here in the north, and that sole just gets to the turf really well with minimal digging. But I think they stuff all that packet, all those high tech pieces into such a good looking iron that a player who normally looks at their clubs when they go into a fitting and say, man, I always get something with a lot of offset and it's really big and
Right.
because that's what I need. They can set down a ZXi5 and they go, man, this is kind of, in a sense, tour inspired. It looks really good, but I'm not going to be penalized if I hit a bad shot with it. It's still going to have good performance. And yeah, I mean, the fitters just love it because it combines that distance, the forgiveness, and that good feel and sound. And, their clients love that stuff. So the ZXi5s was really highly touted by a lot of fitters.
Yeah, I think it also, for me, it's the best. I think it probably falls into that player's distance category, but I think it's the best in terms of if you need to blend it with either the ZXi4 or the ZXi7. I think the way it gives the look of it makes it blend together really smoothly with either option there. So I think from that perspective, as well as we see the rise of combo sets continue here, I think that's a really good another aspect of that iron as well. So also in the overall performance category, we had 2 other irons that did really well here. We had Tailor Made P790, which has been, this is it the 5th iteration now, the P790, I think? But we've had so many of those before. And then the Titleist T150 also performed really well. What have you heard from those 2 iron models?
Yeah, the P790 is one that, it was interesting because I myself personally have hit all 5 generations, and I haven't necessarily gotten along with that iron, and I like it. I've never hit it great, but hearing from fitters out there that it does so much well, and much like the ZXi5 that we just talked about, it's one of those irons that Tailor Made over these generations has kind of slimmed it down, made it more compact. They've taken a little offset out of it. Everything about it visually looks really good. I mean, the backing of it when it's either hanging on the wall or in a bag looks fantastic. It's very clean, very simple, very kind of blade-ish players looking. But the one thing that fitters, I mean, the first thing out of mouth, it's long. And if they have a player who's looking for a little distance, or, a good player who's slowed down a little bit and they're kind of looking to get a little bit of that back, it is the iron that it seems everybody wants to pull off the wall because they say it sounds and feels great. Tailor Made's hollow body construction with the what is it, speed air foam in there. It always sounds and feels good, but they're like, it's long. And this version, they're saying it spins a little bit more, so people are seeing a little bit better control. But it's just great for getting distance back for those players who need it. With again, not without going to a big super game improvement type iron. So a lot of fitters said they'll see guys who are scratch very low single digits all the way up to high handicap players playing this because it does everything pretty darn well. So an iron that I was kind of amazed at how good the reviews from fitters were. And, everybody just raved about it as soon as you brought it up. Their eyes kind of lit up and they're like, yeah, I've had a ton of success with this one for a wide range of different type of players.
Yeah, and then we'll wrap this one up here with the T150, which I appreciate Titleist kind of making that space in their T series for T150 because you had the T100, you had the T100S, which previously was just basically a stronger lofted T100. But I think they've done a lot more now with the T150 to really separate the two. And it's been actually almost in many cases, depending on the type of player, right? But it's as popular, even more popular than the T100 for our fitting bays. Now, on tour, you'll see a lot more T100s versus T150s. But I think it's a lot more applicable, the T150 is in the fitting bays, just from, your all the widest range of golfers, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's, what you said there was a lot of what fitters said. They just like the fact that, a player who would, love to play the T100 because their favorite player on tour plays it, they don't maybe have that kind of skill. So they need something with a little bit of help. And the T150, being just slightly bigger, packs a ton of that help. And people, a lot of fitters love the fact that it's not just a T100S. It's not just a stronger lofted version. They love the fact it's a little bit bigger. It spins maybe just a little bit less. So depending on the player, they may need that. But also too, I mean, as this game kind of evolves, there's a lot of players out there who, they're athletic people. They swing it a little harder. They hit it a little further. They may not know where it's going yet as they progress in the game. But as these players get better, this is an iron that, offers all that players look, but that offers that little bit more distance, a little bit more forgiveness. And being just slightly bigger, it's a little more stable. And what they did with the sole design compared to the previous one, it tends to get through the turf a little bit better as well. But yeah, the fitters love the fact that this iron came out, and it almost seems like most of them wish every manufacturer had something to compete with the 150 because it just finds that spot in that kind of mid to lower handicap players' bag so often. And it does. It kind of almost cannibalizes a little bit of the T100 sales because, if you're going to hit both of them relatively similarly, why not go with the one that's going to help you on the bad day?
Right.
And, it looks great. It sounds good. It feels good. But yeah, I love the T150 personally as well. I kind of nicknamed it when I first got my set, kind of like the cheater set, because when you set it down, it doesn't look that much bigger than a T100. And then when you hit that first bad shot off the toe or the heel or whatever, and that ball kind of ends up on the front of the green, you just kind of go, wow, like I'm putting, like that was a terrible swing. And, it turns out, but yeah, the fitters love the fact that, even a tour caliber player who maybe needs a little bit of spin reduction because of their swing could move into the T150 and they're not going to have a problem with it because it's so similar to the T100. And again, like you said, combo set, maybe not as fluid as Srixon in terms of taking a T150 and a T100, but they do work pretty well together if you did want to combo something like that up also.
Yeah, that was the last point I was going to make was about the combos. The T150 looks different than the T100, but it still blends really, really well, which has been another reason why it's a winner in our fitting bays at Second Swing. So I wanted to move on now to the kind of what I call the easy launch or the slow swing speeds category here. I know we've got some comments in the YouTube chat, some people asking about Mizuno JPX 925 hot metal irons. We'll get to those, I know, coming up here. Also some questions about bending lofts and lie angles there, so we'll get to those as well. We've got we got some time reserved at the end for a Q&A session, but I do want to get through these categories here. So in the easy launch and slow swing speeds category, actually speaking of JPX, this is actually 923 though. So the Mizuno JPX 923 hot metal HL was the winner in this category. So talk to me about why. I guess one thing I'm curious about is why the 923s maybe were in here versus 925s. I know it was a little bit of a late release last year, but talk to me about that iron and why it's been so successful, because it probably ranks in the same spot just for second swing fitters as well.
Yeah, so this one actually, I'm going to have the blame on this one. So I put the list together and I completely made a typo on it, and
Okay, there you go.
it should be 925. So I apologize. I didn't even catch it when I sent you the list. Yeah, that was all on me, and it was one that I made the mistake on. But talking to fitters, it is the 925 is the one that all the fitters were talking about.
I mean, the 923 has been awesome as well. So like they've both been fantastic. So they could. We could blend them together as a one winner here, I guess.
For sure. And that was the one thing that for fitters, and to me, kind of looking at from what the fitter responses is how well the Mizuno hot metal line, whether you're looking at the HL, the Pro, the standard hot metal, how well that whole series has done overall. And when talking to these fitters, I mean, they love the fact that Mizuno has a high launch iron, because people, when they walk into the bays, they know Mizuno. They know Mizuno's a great name in irons. They're associated with sound and feel. And a lot of times players who need the height and maybe some spin, or they need that launch, that's not the first thing that a lot of these companies put into a high launch iron is sound and feel. And even looks in some scenarios. So the 925 hot metal HL is a huge one, because not only do they get the performance, it launches extremely easy. It gets them in the air. It's long. The ball speed's fast on it, but they get that Mizuno feel and sound. And to a lot of players, it's so great to kind of add that last element of just enjoying a set of irons that works for your game. And then you get the sound and feel, and you're just like, man, this is just a great package altogether. But a lot of fitters talked about that the newer versions are slimmed down just a touch. They don't quite look as large. The blade length doesn't quite look as long. And Mizuno's just done a really job refining the looks. They've also, adding just a little bit of bounce for a lot of players that can help if they do tend to get a little steep and maybe even hit things a little fat. That little bit extra bounce could be a little more forgiving through the turf. But yeah, this line here, just, like I said, fitters have been ecstatic of the past couple of years of what Mizuno's done for the more average golfer. We all know what they do with blades. They make phenomenal players irons, but for the average golfer to see that they've really stepped it up and put a lot of technology and a lot of engineering into these irons, players or the fitters love it, because they can put it in the player's hands so easily.
Yeah, I think they've, the chromoly material has been a big win in the last couple generations for these irons, the hot metal irons, and then also that contour ellipse face shape. So they've kind of refined the face architecture, where now if you miss it out on the toe or miss it out on the heel, that face shape is kind of designed to fix those misses for you. So to your point, though, the average golfer getting a little bit more benefit out of the JPX hot metal lineup, and then obviously on the HL side, you get a little bit more launch, a little bit more loft, which I think you're starting to see a point there where so many players were getting fit into irons that were too low lofted, and there wasn't enough spin and not enough lift, and they were getting hurt by that. So these HL models that we're talking about here are really beneficial. So the next two on that list for this category, Tailor Made QHL and the Callaway Elite HL. Talk to me about what you've seen, or I guess what you heard from fitters about those two models.
Yeah, I mean, the QHL is one of those where, it is, when you look at it, it's kind of a rebranded Stealth HL in a way, but
yeah,
a lot of fitters, much like, some of these other brands, they were kind of like, it was a really good iron when it was called Stealth. Why, don't break it, let's keep going, because it is really solid. And this model here from TaylorMade, while it doesn't get the looks that P790 gets and all that, because those are kind of the flagships, it's an iron that flies under the radar in terms of it produces great ball speed. It's definitely really stable, and that low center of gravity, it just gets the ball up in the air. And it's pretty cool how they, remove some mass from the toe to kind of reposition it, make that iron and, slide the CG back into center. But yeah, an iron that, again, they really like the fact that you can add a ton of distance. The price point's maybe a little less, so that customer who maybe shies away from a 790 because of that cost, especially if you start throwing in, a shaft or something like that to help them, that ups the price, that QI iron can definitely come in and do a lot of that, and fit into somebody's budget. And then, yeah, the Elite HL, the whole Elite lineup, same thing. Elite lineup has been raved about. A lot of fitters going through some of the other categories were saying, like, well, how come Elite's not there or whatever? And it's like, well, the votes are tallied and they are what they are. But the HL version, again, it's one of those where, like, a lot of fitters, it almost like they prefer it over Apex. If they're looking at somebody between AI 300 versus the Elite HL, the Elite HL, they're like, it just launches higher. The ball speed's like just as fast. And again, same thing when you look down on it, It looks good. It doesn't look super huge and chunky. I mean, it's a big iron, but it doesn't sit as big as it really is. And then, of course, what Callaway did with the graphics on the back, it's such a classy looking iron now that when somebody comes in and they look at it, it's not like, oh man, this is just kind of the game improvement, whatever iron. Like, it's a good looking iron. It looks good in the bag, and people really like the sound out of it as well. Callaway did a good job with the urethane microspheres to make that thing have a more muted, softer sound and feel to it. But yeah, both those irons, especially being a little different price point, fit a good range of players to come in to get fit.
Yeah, that was the comment from Kevin Kraft, who you talked to, talking about the elite irons is in the past with Paradigm and then AI Smoke, there was just not enough spin, not enough. It was a hot iron, no doubt about it. But now there's a little bit more launch, a little bit more spin there to really help those players that still need to maintain those levels there. We are still getting a bunch of comments in the chat. Someone's asking about the Cobra 3D printed irons, which we're going to be talking about coming up here. And then also, I will add this too to the conversation about the upcoming Titleist irons. This would be typically a year where Titleist maybe launches some new irons. I know there's not anything out there quite yet. I don't know yet for sure, but that would probably change some of this list, I'm sure, if this had been out 3-4 months maybe from now. But nonetheless, so far we were using the 2023 T series is what we're seeing so far on here. So all right, let's get to pure enjoyment. I like this category. Just having fun hitting iron shots, right? So we've got a couple on here that we've already talked about, but nonetheless, we're going to run through them. We can maybe be a little quicker about it, but Tailor Made P790 is the winner in this category, and that's because I think it's probably the longest player's distance iron on the market. We've got Srixon ZXi5, a lot of the things we talked about before, and then the Mizuno JPX 925 hot metal makes an appearance here as well. So can we kind of, since we have talked about these irons a little bit already, let's kind of just summarize this category and maybe why these three, made the list here on pure enjoyment.
Yeah, pure enjoyment was a category that came about just because, there's certain people out there that buy irons because they're into the tech, or certain play. I'm a player. I'm a lower handicap. I want to work the ball, or I have different things I want. And then there's people who just literally want an iron that they go get fit for. They show up with their specs. They throw them in the bag. They tear the plastic off, and they just go play. And they don't really think about them ever again. As long as they hit it kind of high and straight, and they play some decent golf, they're just out there to have fun. And for the most part, they want an iron that is just going to do that. Like, it's easy to hit, it's long, it goes high. If they mishit it, it doesn't come away with an extremely poor shot. But yeah, it's just an iron that you can go out, and if you haven't practiced in 2 weeks, if you're a little better player, you haven't practiced or touched a club in 2 or 3 weeks, you could put in one of these sets in your bag, go play, and go around the course and have a great time. And you wouldn't have to worry about I'm doing my flushing it, am I hitting it right? It's just one of those that these irons just kind of do everything well, and they just make the game more fun. And there's a lot of people out there that's just what they want. Like, I just want an iron that makes a game fun. And every iron on this list, when you look in this category, there's not an iron here that you would say like, oh man, you better bring a decent game, because that's a little struggle. Like, all these are just easy to hit irons that just make it more fun. They go long and they go straight.
Yeah, that's you talk about distance with this category too, right? ZXi5 we talked about is maybe less distance oriented than the other two in that top three, but still packs a pretty solid punch there. But to your point, I mean, if someone is, maybe I like this example that you used of maybe it is somebody that has gone away from the game or taken a break, so to speak, from the game, but they can still swing the club pretty well. Getting back into it. This is the year I'm going to get back into it and play once a week, right? This is a great spot to start in this list, is looking at these three options. So I appreciate that GolfWRX kind of considers that golfer, because I think there are a lot out there as the game continues to grow a little bit. So let's kind of shuffle over here to Shotmakers, which is my favorite category, and I have maybe a bias involved there because of what the number one iron is on this list. But the Shotmakers category, and this is not really rocket science. We're talking about players that like to hit different trajectories, different draws, fades, different shot shapes. And so the three irons here are the Srixon ZXi7, Titleist T100, and the Tailor Made P7CB. I have ZXi7s in the bag as of a couple months ago, so this is pretty exciting for me. But Brian, talk to me about ZXi7 and what fitters have loved about that one.
Yeah, this is an iron that fitters love for a couple reasons. One, the better players know that it's a really good iron. You do see it out on tour in a lot of bags. And when you go and, say you go to a range and you see some players are really good players, you see a lot of these irons. But what a lot of fitters love is one, blade length's a little bit longer, so it is a little bit more stable. It's not a CB that, you know, you just have to hit it flush every time. You can get away with some shots on this.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is that it does launch fairly high for being a more player's club. So if you have a player who's a great player and just hits it flat, this is a good iron to help them get that ball in the air. Maybe have a little steeper descent angle, have a little better distance control coming into the green. And of course, the Tour V-Sole we talked about with the ZXi5, but in the ZXi7, it's a little narrower, but even having that narrow sole, it doesn't dig because you still get that little bit of bounce, that front angle, gets through the turf quickly, that kind of rear angle of the sole releases from the turf. So, even though it's a little narrower sole, it doesn't dig. You're not worried about super deep divots. And of course, the ZX, the 7 series, ever since it was, Z745, they've always felt great and sounded phenomenal. So this new one here, though, they say love the higher launch on it. It does spin. There's a lot of fitters said it spun just maybe a little bit less than the previous model. But like I said, the launch and that spin, it fits a lot of high speed, better players. And, the fact that you can come out and still work the ball and go up and, hit your fade when you need to, hit your draw, or, flight it down a little when it's windy. It still gives you all that ability in a great looking package. So yeah, Srixon, again, not massive changes from last year to this year, but they didn't have to. They shouldn't have, because it was such a good iron.
As you alluded to right away, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, the Srixon name would have been maybe an underdog, so to speak, in some of these categories. Yeah. But you're seeing it now; it's becoming a favorite because of how consistently now they are high on these lists and high up in the minds of golfers when it comes to irons. Now, T100 and P7CB, which P7CB is a little bit of a new name or new entry, so to speak, into the category or into the iron market, really. I know there was P7MC, prior in a couple series, and now it's P7CB. So talk to me about T100 and P7CB, what the fitters have said about those two irons.
Yeah, T100 is just one of those things where, especially if a player who maybe was playing super, or still is maybe playing competitive, but someone who, was a blade guy for a long time, maybe played, competitively, really was a good player, but life's caught up, you've got families and jobs and whatever, and, you just can't play a blade consistently anymore. The T100 gives you that kind of really thin top line, gives you that small, compact blade length, it gives you good sound and feel, but adding some of that tungsten, in that rear, toe and heel, you've got some stability, shots low on the face, you're not penalized as badly. So it's for that player who, I want to look at a blade. I'd really love to play a blade. The game isn't quite there anymore. I don't have the time to dedicate to it. The T100 is kind of that next step up, and you don't give anything up, really. You're not giving up a ton of playability or workability of the iron. So that one there is just, it's one of those for the past 2 years. It's been really, really good for those players or players on the way down, the kind of that step between, hey, maybe they go to a, fully forged CB or blade next, but right now that T100 is really, really good for them. So that one's just, kind of tried and true. The P7CB, it was amazing, like talking to fitters, how much they really didn't love, like they didn't really find as many players to fit into, like you said, the P7MC, the one before it. It just wasn't very forgiving. It was almost a blade-like CB. And then this new one now, they've got a new sole design, so it's got a little better turf interaction. It doesn't dig as much. Definitely a little bit more perimeter weighting, so it's a little better on mishits. It's definitely straighter. And same thing, it's a little easier to get in the air, hit it high, and especially in the long irons. And also, it still gives you that soft feel. So it is really amazing how many player or fitters, when I talk to them, were just like, yeah, like the MC was, I guess, for what it was, fine. But this P7CB, it's great in players' hands because you can kind of fit it into a lot of different players in that single digit range. And you're not just stuck on, hey, like it's not that far away from the blade. Now it is separated from the blade as its own unit. So, that one there, it was really interesting to hear a lot of people, again, eyes kind of light up and say, like, yeah, this iron, Tailor Made did it right this time with this CB because it definitely plays a lot better than the previous version.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of, a golf club company manufacturer, taking the feedback and seeing what maybe could be improved on a model and putting it together, and that's the result. Is a club that maybe it's more differentiated, right, from the MB now, where it seemed like the MC and the MB there maybe were a little too close to each other, or not different enough, and so sometimes it would kind of overlap probably a lot in those fittings. But now you got something that's different, but yet it still could blend together with, talking about P770 or P7MB. I mean, you have those blend options still there as well with those ones. So I'm seeing the comments here, and there's some more comments and questions about the JPX 925 lineup. But we have one category we want to get to first, and that is another good one here, because we're seeing different approaches to iron construction in the industry. There was a mention in the chat a little while ago about the Cobra 3D printed irons. That's part of this conversation as well. So we're going to get to the tech-packed or the technology-packed conversation, that category. So, looking at different sort of approaches to iron construction and what has been the result there. So one of them is Tailor Made P790. We've talked a lot about that one already today. So clearly, P790 model is still among the best in the industry, but a couple new entrants to this category here as well. The Apex Tie Fusion and the Cobra 3D printed, of course, are the limited model there. So talk to me about, since we've talked about P790 so much, let's go into the Apex Tie Fusion and then the Cobra 3D printed model, what you've seen from those two, why they're so different in the first place, and then what you've seen or what you heard from fitters as well.
Yeah, this is just like you mentioned, it's a category that's just tech. It's kind of like pushing the boundaries of what we'll probably see next in most mainstream irons. A lot of these are not inexpensive. They
right.
But they've got some unique things, and Tie Fusion is one of those ones that when it hit, or at least we kind of heard the rumors that, hey, Callaway's going to have this titanium faced iron, and everybody said, well, they've done that before. Like that's interesting. And when they did it last time, it was with a VFT Warbird. It was a big old club, tons of offset, chunky. And I think a lot of us thought that's where Callaway was going. And Tie Fusion is just a complete reversal of that. It is an iron that you're fusing a titanium face with a steel body, filling it with tungsten and the urethane microspheres. I mean, it's a bunch of different pieces coming together in a much more compact package than anyone, I think, expected it to be. When they first heard about it. And, so you've got all these things. And from what I, talking to Callaway, like, it's not easy to take titanium and put it on steel. Like, they don't weld like a traditional iron, hollow body iron. So you have to do things differently. And, what fitters love about this is that it offers forgiveness and speed of much larger irons in a smaller, compact size. So you get an iron that has tons of ball speed. It actually does spin fairly well. For what the type of iron is. I mean, being kind of a player's distance or distance iron, it actually has some spin. It doesn't just hit knuckleballs out there. So whether you got a lie in the rough or you've got a ball that's really wet or something like that, you're not going to have some knuckleball that goes 15 yards over the green. You're going to have control with it. It sounds and feels really good. I mean, again, I think when we thought titanium, it was going to be tingy and weird sounding.
Right.
It's extremely solid, very muted, very soft. And the fact that it's extremely stable, when you mishit it, it still goes straight, it still goes far. It does everything you want an iron to do, and they shove it into this smaller, compact size that it fits so many players. I mean, like, talking to fitters, they'll see scratch players in this. They'll see, people who are, like you said, coming back to the game after years away, who are, kind of like, I don't know where I'm at in terms of handicap or anything. You're seeing anyone and, jump into this iron and play it really, really well. So if you're looking for distance, you're looking for forgiveness, whatever it is. But the big thing was like how you can get the distance and the spin, without giving up spin. It has been a really big one for that, because it reaches that lower handicap player who's not willing to give up stopping power into the green to hit it a few more yards. And, it just does it really, really well. And, unfortunately, it's a very expensive iron. If it was less expensive, they probably sell way more. But it's kind of the pinnacle of technology at the moment. Like, this is what you can do if you kind of take those budget restraints away. And fitters love the fact that if it's in somebody's budget, it works really well, and you typically are going to get a lot of success out of it. So just a really, really solid iron. And then the 3DP Tour is kind of like same thing. You're pushing the limits of what you're doing in a completely different way. You are
Hmm.
3D printing a club head out of literally nothing, out of thin air. Like you're literally printing it out just like you know, would 3D print a plastic piece, but it's 3D printed out of stainless. And what they did with that, where it is not a speed iron, like it's not made, it's hollow body, but it's not made for speed. It's got a little thicker face, and inside of it is this lattice structure that supports the face, and it also supports the head as they print it. Like they found that if they just tried to print like a hollow thing, it would kind of collapse on itself. It wasn't able to do it. So the lattice structure not only helps during the process of making it, but it also helps support the face. And while it's not fast, it has some speed. Like when you hit it, it goes a decent ways. Like it's not as hot as a P790 or a Thai Fusion, but it definitely has a little bit of speed. And when you set it down, it pretty much looks bladish. I mean, it's really small,
Really?
really compact. The sound and feel on it is fantastic. I mean, it feels like a forged iron. It doesn't really feel hollow body, but again, with that lattice structure, it's hollow. Like there's no foam or anything in it, and it doesn't have any weird ringing or tinging or funny sounds, even when you mishit it. And the other thing that's crazy is that the whole thing's hollow, and they shove two massive chunks of tungsten in the toe and the heel. So when you miss it out on the toe or the heel, the MOI on it is crazy high for such a small iron. So again, the same thing. They're doing things that when you hit that iron, and especially on a bad swing, and you look at the result and you just go, look, what? How did that happen? Like that shouldn't happen because
Right.
this size iron, whatever, that ball should fall to the sky or go way right or whatever it is. And yeah, I mean the same thing kind of like Thai Fusion. The fitters are like for the slightly better player because it is such a small iron. If somebody again it's in their budget, it's so good because it does everything. And in terms of forgiveness, it punches above its weight class so far that that blade-ish type player can play this iron, get a ton of forgiveness. But on the days when they want to, work it and hit their shots, they can do it. And yeah, I mean, it's got spin, it's got that just touch of speed to it, and it sound and feels great. But yeah, two irons that are just kind of really pushing the limits, just in totally different directions, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, that's it. Again, I like this conversation because, you know, in 3, 4, 5 years from now, it'll be kind of fun to revisit this entire thing and how many irons at that point will be 3D printed or how many irons will have a titanium face to them. Maybe it's zero at that point. Maybe we roll this thing out and we have a couple more iterations in the next couple of years and suddenly there's just no interest in it. Maybe I'm not, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know, but nonetheless, I think it's fun to recognize those unique approaches to iron design. And I know you've hit those irons and you've had some really good feedback yourself. And kind of speaking of that, again, we've got some comments, we've got some questions in the chat that I will get to. But I did want to just get your personal opinion, outside of what the fitters have said, your personal opinion on your favorites for the various categories we've talked about here, because I know, for those who don't know, you are truly testing out every iron that is out there. So you've had the experience, you've hit them to yourself. What would you say, if we're talking about, overall performance, maybe easy to launch irons, pure enjoyment irons, shot making irons, and then the tech packed ones?
So my favorite in terms of overall performance, I think it is. For me, I got to go T150, and I think part of it, like you mentioned, with Shotmakers, there's a little bit of kind of like bias. I got fit into those irons. I played them for basically a whole year, and they're still in my rotation of irons. But I think that T150 is just like as we talked about, it just embodies like I loved it when I got them. I was like, these are cheaters, because a guy like me who's struggling to get back to that single digit. I ended last year at an 11.1. I want to get back under, back into the 9s, hopefully 8s again if I can. And it's an iron that allows me to do that. And I like to look at small things. I'd rather look at a blade, but I know
Right.
I'm not good enough, so I need some help. So that iron there always to me is my favorite. With the high launch stuff, I think there's a lot of good irons out there. I mean, I think again, I know it isn't the one that's the first, but I think that Titleist T350, because I think when you look at the T350 in terms of package, that was the one that came in technically fifth in terms of the list. That's an iron that you don't, when you first look at it, if you hold it in your hand, I don't think you think high launch. Like it's the Titleist 350. It's the next one in forgiveness. But then when you hit it and you see what it does and how high that ball goes and how effortless it is, that's an iron that I think is sneaky good in that higher launch category. And again, you don't have to go to a super big game improvement, high offset iron.
Right.
It's a really good looking piece that just does really, really well there. And then, yeah, pure enjoyment. I think the JPX 925 hot metal is fantastic, but I think the T200 was kind of overlooked in that
Mm,
category. I think more people, when you saw that iron, when you took it off the wall, or a fitter handed it to you, you probably thought it was a little more demanding just from the look, because it looks smaller than it really was. I mean, it's got a little wider sole. You don't really see that from a dress. It's definitely hollow body, but it isn't massive. It's pretty compact. And I think that's one of those ones that I even know a few players who, are single digits, who love the T200. They love the fact they just go out and play it, and they don't have to worry about, hey, I got a bad day. Doesn't matter. I'm still hitting good shots with it. And that one's there, I think, is really sneaky and one of the better performers for pure enjoyment that I don't think gets a lot of love because it's in its second year. And again,
sure.
it doesn't quite look like a pure enjoyment club in a sense. And then Shotmakers, yeah, I mean, the one that was interesting to me was that wasn't on the top three was the Mizuno Pro S3. And the reason being is it
Yes.
wasn't out that long. Like we talked about, 925 not being out for that long. S3 was only out for a short time. But when you talk to the fitters, the one thing was I don't get that many players who fit into that iron. But when they do, it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, almost every fitter said it's probably one of the best looking
Oh
irons
yeah.
out there. Like when you think of a beautiful iron and you set that down, the S3 just screams, this is beautiful. From address, it's
Hmm.
thin, it's small, it looks great. Mizuno just did a fantastic job with that iron in terms of looks. And then the feel is out of this world. I mean, every fitter, same thing, just said it's so soft. I personally think it holds up to some of the exotic, Japanese market stuff that, people claim is the best ever and, the softest. I think S3 hangs right with it.
Hmm.
So that's a great one in Shot Makers. And then in Tech Packed, I mean, again, I think, you see AI 200, which it was interesting because not as many people are yet in love with AI 200 as I think some of the other Apex models that went before it, but they love the fact that it's different than AI 300 and there's two models now.
Yeah.
And when you have a person come in and they're an Apex person, you're going to get the same sound, same feel. You're just going to get different launch characteristics. So you don't have to say, like, well, hey, let's try the slightly more forgiving one. And they go, well, it looks really different. It sounds different. It does. Like, no, it's pretty similar, except for the fact that, that one launches a little higher, maybe spins a touch less. The 200 is, a little bit lower launching or whatever. The characteristics are just different. So those ones there, kind of from each category, stand out as ones that are really interesting. And in the overall, I
Hmm.
will say this: I know you didn't ask it. The one that was shocking to me was Ping I-530, and
Yeah.
the reason is much like Titleist, it's in its second year. It's the second year of 530, and I don't remember anybody talking about it last year. And this year, every time I said, to the fitter, said, "Hey, I-530, what's Ping doing here?" Every one of them was like, "I love this iron." And it was like, "Wait,
Really?
what?" And your own Kevin Kraft there was so high on it, and they said, if a player's looking for distance but they don't want to go big, the 530 just does it. It's super hot. It
Huh.
goes a long way, but it's compact and it's got a little more meat on the sole, so it's forgiving there. But they're like, you can get that player who's looking to find that kind of cheaterish club, and it fits great. And guys like him raved about it. And I was like, well, nobody talked about it last year, and it was still there, same
Right.
iron. So that was the one that was kind of shocking to me in overall. But again, fitters really love that iron for distance play. Players who just want to add some distance to their game.
Yeah. Yeah, the I-530 did really well in our Fitter's Choice results as well. So, well, all right, we've got a little bit of time here, Brian, with you. And we've got a bunch of actually questions and comments rolling in the chat here. So I'll go right here. This one's from Pedro on there. He said ZXi5 versus P790. What's better for moving on from game improvement? So obviously, I think this player would be moving from a game improvement iron potentially to a player's distance. Is there one that's better for that transition?
It depends on what you're looking for. People always ask me
Yeah.
like, when should I move to the next iron or when should I move down? And I think you have to look at your game and your iron set and say, what's the attribute that I want to change? What do I want to see different from what I'm currently playing? Is it a launch thing, a speed thing, a spin thing? Whatever it is, you got to figure out what is that difference that you want into the next set of irons. And I would say both are great options. I would say if distance is your primary still, like you still want to hit it further, you don't want to necessarily have to maybe club up a little bit. P790 has a ton of distance in it, and that will be long. You'll be able to hit shorter clubs into the green from the same
Hmm.
distances. If it is a look thing, I think it's ZX5 or ZXi5 all day. I mean, I think you set that thing down and minimal offset, good looking top line. The shaping's great. Mizuno's nailed that iron, and I think if you want to have a player's look while still getting some of that forgiveness, some of that distance, getting everything, but having it in a great looking package that gives you confidence. I think the ZXi5 is a great choice because I don't think there's too many irons that do what that iron does that look as good.
Yeah, it is wild how the P790 has been a player's distance ironer in this category, or the some iteration of it for we're getting close to a decade at this point now, but
yeah,
it has been the longest iron in the category, or one of the longest, basically the whole time. And I think that I agree with exactly what you said there about it. If distance is Pedro's main concern or motivation, moving up to the next category, P790 is probably the winner. But if you need a little bit of, maybe even spins, the XI5s are going to probably spin maybe a little bit more or launch a little bit higher. That would be probably the choice there. Here's another one asking about the power spec options from Ping. So said, wanted to know if the Blueprint S power spec options is a different head entirely, that is 2 degrees stronger, or is it just 2 degrees strong by bending it? Asking because of the bounce. So curious, I think, particularly wondering about Blueprint S and sort of that power spec and retro spec options there and what it does to the bounce.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same iron. They're not making 3 different heads of the Blueprint S, unfortunately. It would be great if they did. There's just not. The business side of that is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, with any iron, if you bend it strong, you're going to lose bounce. So if you bend an iron 1 degree or 2 degrees strong, you're going to lose 1 or 2 degrees of bounce. Now, typically, that's not enough to make an iron usually play too drastically different. I mean, if you're somebody super steep and you play in really soft conditions, maybe you notice that your divot gets slightly deeper, but typically 1 to 2 degrees isn't going to make a monster difference. So I wouldn't really worry about it. And on the same end, going weak, adding 2 degrees of loft, if you were to go to that retro spec, that typically won't do a ton. Some players could, I guess, if you're really consistent, you could maybe see ball contact slightly move up the face a little when you go weak and maybe slightly down as you go strong. But again, that's going to be in really specific situations and depending on your consistency. So 1, yes, you're going to remove some bounce. 2, I just don't know that it'll be that drastic. Of course, your swing is different than everybody else's, so you're going to have to see. But yeah, you will lose a little bit of bounce.
Yeah, that's I've had that question come up too before about bounce. I think another way to look at bounce is it's probably much more impactful with your wedges. Making sure that part's dialed in, and you have various amounts of bounce with your wedge set, but also on those little kind of nippy pitch shots or what have you, the bounce and using it kind of appropriately is going to be more impactful than in maybe a couple degrees with your irons if you end up needing a loft change there, which is what that power and retro spec does. Got a couple comments in here. We appreciate everybody joining. We're going to start wrapping here shortly. But I know, Brian, your Mira irons too. So we got a question about Mira. Which Mira iron compares to or closest to the, say, Mizuno Pro T243 or the Titleist T150? So which one is kind of in or would be closest to that iron category?
Oh, man. I mean, you're kind of talking about a little bit of a speed iron there.
All right, right.
I don't know. I'm trying to say, I mean, I don't know. I'm probably going to go still TC202, even though, I mean, it's brand new out and it's not really speed. But I think it plays in kind of the similar in terms of size and all that. It's got a great sole on it. I just literally took this set out on the course last week. And actually, I was pretty impressed with, I wouldn't say distance is long, but I would say if you're anywhere near a solid strike, the ball is definitely going, what you'd expect it to, whatever your number is. You're not going to lose that much distance on slight misses. I think they made that iron just a little bit bigger. They moved a little bit more perimeter weighting to it. It's pretty darn stable. And then what they did with the weighting in the cavity with that T-bar, I think it does flight fairly well. I think, you take the 5 and 4 iron, and they're actually pretty easy to elevate for, a single piece forged iron. And when you get down to those lower irons, they come out a little bit flat. It is definitely, I think, noticeable, even for a guy like me, like I said, who's not, I'm not a scratch player. I don't hit it the same every time. I'd probably still go with that. It probably isn't quite as long as a T150. You're probably going to lose, maybe half a club, something like that on it in terms of distance. But I think in terms of being able to hit it high and having some forgiveness out of it, I'd probably still put that in the same category.
Awesome. Yeah, that's again, I'm actually not super familiar with Mira irons, but I knew that you were, and I actually saw that you took those out. I know you had posted a couple things on your Instagram about those. So I had to give you a chance to answer that one for sure. But so yeah, we're gonna wrap right here because we're getting close to that 2 o'clock Central Time. So first, I'm going to thank you, Brian, for joining. This has been awesome. It's obviously great to get your insight as someone who is so deep into the golf equipment world. So that's been awesome. And then obviously, I want to give you the chance as well to tell everybody watching right now, tuning in, whether they're on the live right now or they're watching afterwards, where they can find all of your content.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me back on. Because honestly, Drew, I love chatting with you. I always have a great time. We always, getting in clubs. We always have fun, and I think it's a blast. So, one, I appreciate it. Thank you. And then two, yeah, I mean, so I work for GolfWRX. So, at GolfWRX is X, Instagram, TikTok, all that. And then golfwrx.com is our website. And then my podcast, the Club Junkie, is on pretty much every streaming platform, and on Instagram, and it's just Club Junkie Pod. So that's where I pretty much post a lot of my stuff between those two sites. And it's fun. I love doing these best lists because you get to look through those lists and kind of compare our notes to those notes and see how you compare to the fitters and what you like and how yours rank. And it's always a whole lot of fun to go through these lists.
Yeah, it's there's always a lot of overlap between our fitters just at Second Swing and then what the industry, that everybody you talk to kind of sees for the ranking. So I don't think that's really a coincidence either. But Brian, thank you again so much, and I also have to wish you the best of luck in league tonight. Go low.
Thank you. I'm going to need it. It's cold out and cold and windy tonight, so it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. So I appreciate that. I'm going to need all the luck I can get.
Well, have a good one, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Drew. Appreciate it.